Hi, I'm Ashley Marie and it's time for cake. This is Gruff. He is a Neverbeast from Neverland and he's from the new DVD Tinkerbell and the Neverbeast, and I had a ton of fun creating him for our DVD viewing party that we're having. He is going to be the centerpiece today and I can't wait for all the kids to see him. Carving a cake is really fun. It's one of my specialties, and I actually took a video and I'm going to show you guys how I did it. So let's get started. Every single cake that I make, especially the carved cakes, start with a plan. I wanted to show you guys just kind of some of my rough sketches. So first, I started by just kind of drawing his side, drawing the back, drawing what I thought the front would look like, making sure that I got details like down here, his nose and his teeth, up here his paws and his toenails, over here his tail design. Then you can see over here I started working on where exactly all the swirls and placement is on his body. I just kind of sketch and sketch and sketch and sketch until I'm happy with the overall design, and then we start to put it together.
All right, you want to start out with two 12-inch square cakes that are about 2 inches tall, and you want to go ahead and level those off once they're cooled. Now we're going to cut them in half, so you'll end up with 4 rectangles of chocolate cake. And next you want to stick them to your cake plate or to your cake stand with ganache. Now I have a recipe for ganache over on my site with a link down below. Ganache is the only thing I use to frost carved cakes. It is really amazing. It's kind of a miracle worker. So it spreads just like frosting, but then as it sets, it actually gets really hard, and it's like the most amazing glue ever. It's perfect when you're creating these structured or 3D cakes. In fact, I use it under most of my cakes just because it's so delicious. Anyway, so stack 3 of those. You're gonna end up with a 6 by 6 by 12-inch cake. And I realized that wasn't quite wide enough for the look I was going for. So I took the final cake, cut it into half, and then I attached it to both sides. Let that ganache set so that you can cut away without your cakes being all moving around. And because I carve with frozen cakes, that actually sets super fast because it's so cold that ganache sets almost right away. And then start carving. This is so much fun to do, you guys. It's a great medium. I decided to pick his back as a great place to start. That bump that he has is the highest point of the cake, so I figured that'd be a great place to start carving from. And notice how I'm turning my cake constantly. I could not cake decorate without a good turntable. And again, I'll have a link down below. Because I'm using my cake on a cake stand, I'm actually using a flat turntable where most of the time I work with a tall turntable because I like to have my cakes up high to work on. Anyway, so start carving away. You can see I've already marked off where I want his front and back legs to be, and I'm now carving where his tummy is gonna end up away from his body, and that's going to help shape those front and back legs. Make sure that you don't carve so much away that you lose his haunches or his shoulder blades. So by using a turntable, I can see various angles, and that really helps me get the carving just right. And I'm working left, right, left, right, left, right. I'm constantly working on both sides. I find that if I carve on one side and get it perfect, then when I try to match it on the other side, it's a lot more difficult. So go ahead and take those harsh edges and always, be rounding them off. This is the scary part. Look how much of that portion I'm cutting away. So to start on the head, the face was probably the part I took the most time on. It's kind of hard to see in a big block where his face is going to be. So start marking out those details. See how I marked where his ears were going to be? So I left them for now. I carved away where his eyebrows are, and I'm just starting to carve a little bit at a time. It's a lot harder to add cake back on. You can using the ganache, but I would suggest just cutting a little at a time. I actually probably spent 3 times the amount of carving time on his face than the rest of his body. I just kept going little by little until it really took shape for me. You can see there I'm creating more of his neck. I'm going around his jawline, making sure his ears I'm happy with, and as I created the jawline, ended up finishing off those front legs as well. So there's his cheeks and his nose. I hope you guys can see him starting to take shape. There's his eyes and his mouth, and once you can really see it, and that'll help immensely. I'm making his deep set eyes now. You can see his jaws nice and angled, and this is where watching the movie so many times really comes into handy. So we're mostly done. We're just kind of working on a couple details here and there. I wanted his back to sway a little bit, make sure his hips stuck up. Now it's time to clean up, you guys. Look at all those crumbs. It's a mess. You do not want to frost your cake with all those crumbs around. So once you're happy with the carving, clean, 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 clean. Your hands, the counters, your cake plate, everything. Get rid of all the crumbs that you can. And it's time to start frosting. If your ganache has gotten a little bit too hard, just pull a portion of it out and re-melt it in the microwave, and then add it to the rest of the ganache and stir it together to keep that pliable and the texture the way that you want it to for frosting. So once you get the main portion on with your big frosting spatula, move on to your small frosting spatula. I'm actually using two, this small angled 6-inch and then this sharper angled spatula as well to get into all those deep crevices. You would hate to spend all that time making all these details as you carve, only to lose them when you frost your cake. So those small spatulas really come in handy in creating those shapes and the depth and helping really bring your character to life. Also, the ganache really strengthens this little guy. His ear is sticking out there, and if I just put fondant on that, it would end up breaking his ear right off. So this ganache is going to set and really strengthen that ear so that I'm not going to have that problem. So again, I probably took the most time frosting his face to make sure I got those deep set eyes, got his nose just right, got those ridges over his eyebrows the way that I wanted them, and it's okay. The great thing about working with ganache is it sets while you go, and so if you don't get it perfectly smooth the first time around, that's okay. You can always go back later and then keep smoothing it. It'll be harder to smooth once it's set, but sometimes that's actually a good thing. It's kind of nice to have a little resistance when you want to smooth it out. So just keep going around until it's completely set. One of the best parts about ganache is also that it's going to hold all that moisture in, and your cake is going to taste amazing and not be dry at all. So I realized that I missed a little portion on his backside, so I just added a little fondant later. All right, now for his eyes, I really wanted him to pop through, so I put him on the ganache layer, and then I'm going to cut away the fondant I placed over him. All right, a huge sheet of fondant, about 20 inches by 20 inches square. I'll go ahead and place that on, and while it's nice and soft and fresh, stretch that out around his body. Now you can see I roll my fondant pretty thick. It's about 1/4 inch or slightly thicker, and that's because it makes it a lot more easy to stretch and pull and push into place. If you cut it too thin or you roll it too thin, you're actually going to get a lot of creases and folds, and it's going to be really difficult to work with. So cut away the excess, still leaving yourself a little bit of room, and start smoothing them out, making sure to stick your fingers down in all those ridges. We're going to go back through with a tool now and really enhance all of those details. So I'm using a bunch of different tools at the link down below. I have an extra large ball tool, a regular size ball tool, and then right now I'm using this small angled ball tool. You want to make sure you don't just stick those ball tools or your sharp tools into the deep crevices. You'll end up just cutting your fondant, and nobody wants that. You really want to work a little bit at a time and stretch it into place. Now I'm using this miniature flat spatula to actually press against and kind of underneath almost the cake and cutting away that excess to get those nice sharp lower edges. You can see I'm constantly changing between a couple different tools. I start out with the larger tools, push it into place. You're more spreading the fondant than you are like just popping it in there. And then I'm going smaller to smaller to smaller tool, making sure you smooth it out. You can see all the great details now, and now it's time to create his fur. I love this sharp tool. It's like a needle with a handle. In fact, it's so sharp, I cut myself pretty bad, so be careful. Anyway, I marked out his nose and his mouth, and now I'm going to start cutting away at the fondant to create that furry look. There are some other ways that you can do this. This is just the one that I thought would work best with the type of fur that he has. So I'm actually using this sharp tool and cutting away at the fondant, creating this great texture. And think about the fur and how it moves along his face. You know, it comes out of the eyes like a sunburst, then it goes away from the center of his forehead on each side of his eyebrows and down his nose and down his chin. And don't be afraid to go a little bit deep. Just be careful not to go so deep that you cut down through to that chocolate layer. You would hate to bring some chocolate up through the surface. So just keep going all around his face and then down his body until you're really happy with it. And I love how you ended up. This texture looks amazing. Notice I still have that flat part in the back. I still need to add his tail. So make some gray fondant. I mixed some white and black together to get the color that I was happy with. And cut out like a wide heart shape for his nose, pretty angular, and then smooth the bottom of it. You want the top to be thick, but you want the bottom to kind of just meld into his upper lip. And then using some kind of alcohol, whether it's vodka or clear vanilla, attach that to his nose. You can see I already created that tail and attached it. I'm using another tool to make his nostrils now. You don't want to just cut away because that would leave white underneath. So you just want to press it into place. I'm using about 30 toothpicks in one hand to create little dots all over his nose. And now I used a clay extruder to get this nice long tube for his mouth. I find that clay extruders are cheaper than fondant extruders, although they might not quite be as nice. So that's what I use. Of course, don't use it for clay and for fondant. I have one that I expressly use just for cake decorating. So go ahead and press his mouth into place. Again, I'm using vodka to stick this on. What that does is the alcohol eats away a little bit at the fondant and then creates this great tacky surface that ends up holding the fondant to fondant really well. All right, I pre-made probably about 12 teeth of various sizes. So I'm just separating his lips and adding those teeth one by one into place. Notice that far right tooth is broken. That's from the movie. I only ended up using about 8 of the 12 teeth that I made, but it's always good to have a bunch of options. So it's best to make more than less. And you can see that I cut through that white fondant and have his green eyes popping out. In the movie, he has 2 different colors of green eyes. I went with this bright lime green that he gets as the lightning starts getting stronger and he gets a little bit more magical. Oh, this part was the scariest part of the whole cake. You have this gorgeous white cake and then you're going to start painting on it with black paint. You know, once you get black on there, it's not going to come off. So I tried to keep my brush as dry as possible. I tried painting just a little bit on. You don't want it too wet or it's going to paint down into all those great textured crevices that we created that we don't want. So I tried to keep my brush really dry, paint on it, and then feather it out to kind of create a more realistic look, more fur-based look to all of the markings on his body. So I started with the easy ones, his back legs and his haunch, and then his ankles, around his ears, around his jaw, and then started doing his beard. Now you can see that it's getting really messy, all that black paint on that tray. I know I'm kind of a klutz. I'm going to end up touching it and then touching something else and getting black someplace I don't want it. So I started cleaning up after myself. This is a paper towel soaked in vodka. And I realized when I was doing this that I could probably use this same technique to dab away at the harshness of this black. So I got a paper towel, damp, not soaking, but damp with some vodka. And then I started just tapping, just pressing against the paint that I had previously done. And I loved the effect. It really took that harshness of the black away and created a more subtle, it's still black, but it's more subtle and more soft. So I'm really thrilled that brainstorming just came to me while I was working. It's funny how that sometimes happens. No matter how well you plan your cake, those last minute brainstorming sometimes make the biggest difference. So now just keep going with all the rest of the markings on his body. Notice, like I do when I'm carving and frosting, I work left, right, left, right. I find that it's easier to get more symmetrical when I'm working on the same portion, the same swirl, the same curve on each side at the same time, rather than perfecting one side and then trying to match it. And with the tail, you can see that I already attached it. I actually created like a cornucopia shape with some foil and then wrapped it in fondant and attached it to his body with skewers. And then I used that same sharp tool to make those detailed marks. All right, all the painting is done, and I'm again I actually went through quite a few paper towels on this. You want to constantly be using a clean surface. If you're using a dirty paper towel, one that you've already dabbed the paint away with, you're actually going to make more of a mess. So the very last thing is his toenails. I added them last because I didn't want to accidentally get paint on them, and then I textured them up.
Gruff is all done. I hope you guys enjoyed this tutorial and I hope that you use it, whether you make your own Neverbeast or you just gotta get brave and start carving cakes.
Thanks for watching. I hope you enjoyed this. Don't forget to subscribe to my channel to see even more and leave me a comment if there's anything that you'd like to see. Thanks.